Hi there, let's take a look at building the if statement in our worksheet in the transactions sheet on cell R9. And you can see we begin this work, I have the textbook open on my screen. We begin this work on page 278 and we'll continue to build this if statement over many pages. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have my worksheet open, I'm on cell R9, and the first if statement is pretty straightforward. What we want to build is we want to build an if statement that says if line item total is less than 25, then return the word low, and if it's not, return the phrase everything else. So pretty straightforward, right? But we've been doing if statements for a while now, so we can make this a little more complicated for ourselves. Let's test our skills. So what we're really going to do is we're going to say if line item total, which in this case is P9. If P9 is less than, I'm going to go over to my data input sheet, is less than K20. Do you see how K20 holds the value of 25? Then return the word low, but we're not going to say low. We're going to say I20. And if not, return everything else. So that's how we're going to build this if statement. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so it's straight up if statement. I'm on R9. I'm going to type equals if. From my list, I'm going to double click on the if function name. And it's a standard old if statement. So the first thing that I put in is my test. And my test is P9 less than. Okay, and here's where I have to be super careful. We've practiced with this a little bit, and we're going to do it again, so I know you can do it. Be very careful about what you click on because we're in the middle of editing a function, so your mouse will follow you. So be super careful about what you click on. And here's what you need. You need to click on the data input sheet and K20 precisely, nothing else. If you accidentally click on something else, you can press the escape key on your keyboard and get out of this and start again. Okay, I've luckily enough clicked on everything as I should, but I have to do one more thing. So notice after I clicked on K20, I didn't touch anything else. On my keyboard now, I need to make K20 an absolute reference. So I'm going to use my F4 key. If you're on a laptop, press and hold the FN key and then press F4, right? So we're translating that into an absolute reference. We want it to stay K20 no matter what. If your F4 key isn't working or if you don't like it, you can manually type in $K, $20, right? We know absolute references. We've been using them a while now. Okay, so I pressed F4. F4 just automatically flips it over to an absolute reference. On my keyboard now, I'm going to press the comma because my test is done. There's my test. Is P9 less than 25? And 25 happens to sit in the cell K20, so it's perfect. All right, so I type the comma. The second thing that gets added to an if statement is what happens if this test is true. If this test is true, I want it to return the word low, and so I'm going to click on I20, and that's exactly what I want it to return. Is what is sitting here in the data input sheet in cell I20. Again, I need this to be an absolute reference, so I'm going to use my F4 key. If you're on a laptop, press and hold FN, then press F4. Okay, that converts it to an absolute reference. That's what Excel is going to return if this is true. I'm going to type a comma on my keyboard. What should Excel return if it's false? Well, in the textbook, it tells us it should return the phrase everything else. And because everything else is text, it goes in the double quotes like I'm showing. Okay, so double quotes, everything else. And we have to put that in quotes because it's text. Your text could say anything at all. The book tells us just to use this phrase, everything else. All right, I'm going to type in my right-hand parentheses, cross your fingers, press enter, and did it work? Let's take a look. Well, 36 is not less than 25, so it's not low. It's everything else. All right, I'm going to fill this down the column. Let's see if it worked. Oh, maybe I'll fill it down the column. I'll try this again. There it goes. Oh, I already had it filled in. That's why. So I'm just going to take a look. Is 2 low? Yep, that's low. This one's low. These are low. These are everything else. So it looks good. It looked like it worked. Okay, great. Save your workbook. Don't lose anything. But we got to keep moving on. So as you continue to read the pages in chapter 5, now we're going to make it even more complicated because we've got if statements. This is good. This is really super useful. We use if statements all the time in the real world. They make our lives much easier. So let's see about making this a little more complicated. We're ready for this. And here's what we're going to do. So in our current if statement, I'm going to click back up on R9. In our current if statement, here's the test. Here's what to do if it's true. And here's what to do if it's false. If it's false, it's returning this phrase, everything else. We're going to replace that with another if statement. How's about that? Isn't that cool? So instead of saying everything else, we're going to type in a whole new if statement. And we can do this. We know how to do if statements. All right, so highlight or select that entire phrase, everything else, including the quotes. We're going to get rid of all of that. So highlight all of that. Quote, everything else, quote. All right, and what we're going to type in its place is the function name if, left-hand parentheses, P9 less than. Okay, and this time we want P9 to be less than. So with my mouse now, I'm going to click the data inputs sheet. I'm going to click here, what is that, K21? If P9 is less than 100, which sits here in cell K21. K21 has to be an absolute reference, so I'm going to press function F4, right? Change that. So now here's our test for our new if statement. If P9 is less than 100, which sits in cell K21, type a comma. What should Excel return if this is true? If this is true, we want Excel to return I21. All right, good. Make that an absolute reference. Excellent. Type a comma. What to do if it's false? Well, in this case, if it's false, we want it to return the word high, which is cell I22. And make that an absolute reference. And then let's take a look at this. It seems super complicated. You are going to impress the socks off your boss, but really it's just an if statement. Here's our first if statement. If P9 is less than 25, return the word low. If that's false, then look again. Is P9 less than 100? If so, return the word medium. If that's false, then return the word high. That's what's here in I22, right? Great. Okay, cross your fingers. This part always makes me nervous. Press the enter key. Did it work? Oh, fiddlesticks. I did something. Actually, I don't mind when I get an error message like this because it makes me think about, oh, what should this look like? Okay, so what did I do wrong? Oh, do you see here I had a type, well, no, P9. What's it going to correct? I'm going to click yes to accept this correction. I had something typed in there wrong. P9. Oh, do you see what? Yeah. So here's what I did wrong. Here's what it corrected. Sometimes you gotta love Excel. It corrected it for me. At the end of all of this, I forgot to add another parentheses, right? We have one parentheses to contain this if statement, and we have another parentheses to contain this if statement. And Excel was smart enough to figure that out and correct it for me. Thank you, Excel. All right. And now let me check the answer. Is this a medium? By golly, it is, right? It's less than 100. That's true, so it's medium. If it were false, it would be high. Okay, I'm going to fill it down, and let's take a look to see if it worked in other places. Is this over 100? Yep, so that's a high. That's a medium. Looks good. All right, save your work. We'll come back to R9 even still later on. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me at any time.